YouTube live right now, and we're also broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio. Today we're going to be discussing Israel, the history of Israel. We're going to be discussing a couple of different websites and topics. I'm going to be joined by a good friend of mine, an activist from Rochester, New York. His name is John McGuire. John has a passion for Israel, Zionism, talking about this with different people. So without any further ado, I am going to we're going to have my buddy John join us here in 1 second. I just got to get him to. All right. I just want to welcome you, John McGuire. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Daniel?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Today we're going to be talking and discussing Israel. And I guess you wanted to speak about a certain website here today, right?
Yeah, this is the one I have written down and typed in Facebook more times than I know, because it's so well put together. It's called ifamerican2.org. ifamerican2.org.
Okay.
What every American knows about Israel/Palestine. And on the homepage, you have very simple bar graph. Very easy to understand that the media right left is lying to us. First bar graph: Israel and Palestinian children killed September 29th, 2000 to present. And you've got 133 Israeli children, 2,060 Palestinian children. So there's a big Twin Towers building, and then there's building 7 down below, right? So that's what the bar graph looks like. No kidding. Huge discrepancy. And then it goes on, and then there's total Israelis and total Palestinians killed. You can see maybe it's a little higher. I mean, it's a little bit less of a discrepancy because the Israelis are really going after Palestinian children. I can't emphasize this enough. They are doing genocide. And this is the big thing that we're not being told. People talk about apartheid, and that's true, of course. But that's nothing compared to the genocide. And so we don't know the half of it when it comes to Israel-Palestine. And this website tells you the whole of it. So couldn't recommend it strongly enough.
So, John, let's get a little background on yourself. How did you first come into learning about this? What made you interested in this type of information that got you interested in Israel and the Palestinians and what's going on in the Middle East conflict? Give us a little bit of a background on yourself. What kind of education and schooling have you been through? And as far as, what have you researched that has brought you to the conclusion of what's happening right now?
Well, no formal education on it. Really, I just spend an unhealthy amount of time on Facebook. And also, when I realized that our country is putting more money into Israel than any other country in the world, I decided I need to become educated about it. And mind you, this is a country, this is the 33rd richest country in the world. They don't need it. And they don't need it for defense, but they are using it to invade. And so, and that's when I started to realize, all right, I've been blind long enough. It's simple. Again, we're pouring more money into Israel than into any other country.
Interesting.
That's the point. I realized I knew way too little. So.
Interesting. Now, as far as your background goes, what is your background as far as your education? What'd you learn? I mean, as far, did you have any college or anything like that, as far as that has prepared you to do some research and finding out the truth about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I went to a college seminary, and I've gone back to community college recently, and I ran into some people with CUFI, or CUFI, depending how you pronounce it, CUFI. It's Christians United for Israel. And there was also a very strong Islamic presence at MCC, Monroe Community College. I had a nice long talk with very nice people who were with CUFI. I was surprised how nice they were. It was very pleasant. They were very, not even just diplomatic, they were very nice people. But also I learned a lot of things from what they said. Like, I had never heard the word apartheid before. They said these people try to say that we have apartheid, and that's just not true. So I said, well, you're the first person who told me about it. Then I look into it, and it's like Providence. Like, oh my goodness, you know, as nice as these people are, there's so much money funding the brainwashing in the colleges that, I mean, I have no doubt those people had goodwill, but at the same time, they had a lot of money backing them. And that's the other shocker. And so I had to think clearly, you know, get the money thing out of the, you know, not get rid of that in, and to look clearly at what it is. And I could see clearly that apartheid was the least of their crimes, that really what we're talking about is genocide. And when I say that, what I mean is that the #1 cause of Palestinian children deaths is gunshot to the head, point blank. And so this is not collateral damage. This is evil. This is genocide.
Now, can you tell us where did you find that information out? That actually the Palestinian children are being killed by gunshots to the head.
Absolutely. Alison Weir is giving a book tour on her book Against Our Better Judgment. Now, she did a video, or she did a talk. It was recorded and put up on YouTube, called How the U.S. Was Used to Create Israel. She has traveled there, she's researched it, and this is the data that she has found. So I would refer you to her sources on that, which is extremely reputable.
Did you actually get a chance to read her book?
I've not found her book yet. Well, you can order it, yeah. No, I haven't. You know what? I've spent so much time checking the sources that she cited on her video, and also the sources cited by another gentleman, a Catholic gentleman, or maybe he's a rad trad Catholic gentleman in Ohio, Jim. Anyways, I've been just kind of following the rabbit hole more than trying to, you know, get through prose, you know, paragraphs. But you know, at some point I hope to. I'm just basically what I have now is an outline of notes, and mostly it's book titles and then like the main idea. And so a few of them are even mainstream, you know, establishment books. But so as far as her source on that, I can't give you that. But let's just say I know she knows.
Gotcha. Right now I'm on the website ifamericanew.org. If we're on this site and there's a lot of things to click on, what would be your advice as far as finding information on this site? I see that there's an overview page, children, deaths, injuries, U.S. taxes, UN resolutions, prisoner, home demolitions, economy, settlements, media analysts, U.S. interests, current situations, history. We have a short time to really go through some of the information with our audience here. What would you highlight from this site, if you could, in a little book report, I guess?
Great question. Let's just start on the main page, where it by default it's on the statistics tab, and you can see those bar graphs I was talking about. And
Right.
you can click on those. I'm gonna click right now where it says 133 Israeli children have been killed by Palestinians, and 2,060 Palestinian children have been killed by Israelis since September 29th, 2000. I'm gonna click on that link.
The one that says children?
Pardon?
The one that says children?
Right. So I click on that, on either one of the children links, doesn't matter which one. And then it will take you to the page where it will document each name and date, I believe. Still loading for me, but.
Really? Source. It has source. Remember.
They're not joking. What's that?
It says the source. Remember these children. A coalition of groups calling for an end to the killing of children in a fair resolution conflict. View the list of victims. Okay, so we have 527 children at the moment that it mentions.
Yep.
It says a child is a person the age of 17 or younger. It was last updated July 21st, 2014. Oh, wow. That's,
You gotta update it.
yeah, can you imagine just in that amount of time, almost in a year, how many people have died?
Yep. And I also, yeah, okay, that's what I do. I just meditate on this. Honestly, it's so shocking. I still haven't taken it in. Also of interest is the zero numbers. So you can scroll down back on that main page, the zeros. Military aid to Palestine, $0. Okay, Israel, 8.5 million per day, at least. Another zero. Current number of prisoners and detainees, 0 Israelis. 6,200 Palestinians.
Right, I see that.
Demolitions of homes, 0 Israeli homes. 28,000 Palestinian homes. So, is this crazy or what?
Yeah, it's definitely some very interesting. Now, John, my question for you is this. What is your suggestion after learning and finding out this information? Personally, I am. I tend to go with a biblical Christian perspective of supporting Israel. I'm not necessarily interested in supporting the military industrial complex, but the Bible speaks about any nation that divides the land or turns against Israel, that God will judge those nations.
Right. God is first here. That's important.
Yeah.
But yes, go on. Yep.
So, it's kind of a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So,
I can speak to that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
My perspective, thank you very much. My perspective is the perspective of Rabbi David Weiss, Dobidwiss. Not only his, but of all Torah Jews, as shows. So if God is first, and you want God's blessing, and you want to base your position on Israel upon that wish, then you must try to listen to Rabbi David Weiss.
Hey, hold on, one quick question. I'm going to do a Google search by voice. You say the name. So, and as soon as I say go, just say the name and we'll see if we can find him. All right, ready, set, go.
Rabbi David what?
Rabbi Javid, hold on. We're going to do this one more time. Rabbi Javid, what is it?
David White.
Rabbi Javid White.
Yeah, but D is in David. It's like David with an O. Okay?
Yeah, one more. I'm going to try it one more time. Dwight, is it Dwight?
No, it's White. W-D-I-S-S.
Wise. Rabbi Javiz Wise.
Uh-huh.
Here is some information about Bobby Wise.
Okay, he's an Orthodox or Jain rabbi. He's also a teacher. We're going to just go to Wikipedia and see what it has to say with that. Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, is that correct?
Hebrew, yes, that sounds right.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. So, now go ahead and tell us what you believe that he would have said, and you are kind of parallel what he believes.
So the rabbi, he points out that if you go to it, and so you're basing your, again, I want to keep connecting this to what you just said, because it's what a lot of Christian Zionists say, is that they believe that their, whatever their rationale, be it that Jesus was Jewish, which actually he was Galilean, he wasn't from Judea anyway, but whether it's Jesus was Jewish, he wasn't from the tribe of Judah either, but anyway, or whether it's that, Bible verse, picking out a Bible verse that says that, I should do this, I really want God's blessing, okay, whatever. Okay, but all of that is based upon the Torah, right? You know what the Torah is?
Yes, the Old Testament.
The Torah is it's not the whole Old Testament, it's the first 5 books, which to them is the whole Old Testament, but anyway. So that's the law. Torah is Hebrew for law. Now, so that's just, so there are Jews who observe the law. They study it, right? They follow it, okay? Those are called Torah Jews, okay? They're Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews, right? Really observant Jews, right?
Yeah.
Serious ones, not the ones walking around with a yarmulke and a suit, right? We're talking about the guys with the hat, okay? Those guys, okay? Those guys wouldn't talk dead with a Zionist flag, Israeli flag, okay? And Rabbi David Weiss helps us understand why. And of course, the number one reason why is, well, because they understand the Torah. Does that make any sense?
Yes, of course.
Okay. You go to these Hasidic neighborhoods, you won't see even the shadow of a Israeli flag. All right, not one. And this is what Rabbi David Weiss, the obvious thing that he points out to help us realize it, because not all of us are Jewish, not all of us have seen these neighborhoods. In fact, I know Jewish people haven't seen these neighborhoods either, because if they did, they'd know. Okay, because we have Jews or Zionists. They've been, they've been wooed and won, right, by this propaganda, right? So that's number one. So if it's really about God, then I would be a lot more trepidatious about Israel, to say the least. And Rabbi David Weiss is a very charitable man, beautiful speaker, and he explains this very beautifully. I never heard a more Jewish man speak, to be honest with you. And I mean that in a good sense, right? And I don't want to get into the politics too much. We're just talking about facts, right? I mean, obviously, everyone who talks about this becomes controversial politically. But wading into that, just to point out the very fact that he says no one who's in these institutions, like you mentioned, the Hebrew school, nobody who's in these is for Israel. Okay, nobody who really is advanced in Hebrew scholarship, in Torah scholarship, believes that Israel has one iota of logical legitimacy. And the UN is pointing out that actually they don't have much civil legitimacy either. So we're running up against something that's hateful of God and of men. But then if a Jew questions it, then they're self-hating. I don't buy that. I believe that if a Jew questions it, they're not fearing, which is what every true Jew and Christian do. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think we could probably do a whole segment just on that itself, on Israel and biblical, legitimacy, and but right now I think we're going to focus on basically what you were talking about here in Palestine. A lot of people don't understand what's really happening in Palestine. They don't know why there's a conflict there. They don't understand why the Zionists want the land, what their agenda is.
Right.
Zionism is a whole complex issue in itself.
Extremely.
Yeah, I've been studying Zionism for years now, and I have a pretty good understanding of it. And I don't believe that Zionism has anything to do with Yeshua, Jesus, or the Old Testament God. My feeling is that,
Yahweh.
right, from my studies, I believe Zionism is not Jewish at all, but it's actually Khazar or Turkish. And it's a false flag. It's basically an organization that's claiming that they're Jews, but they're not really Jews. If you look at the heart of this, these people, the leaders, actually worship Lucifer, and we know that Lucifer from the Bible is the fallen one, the fallen angel that basically tries to overthrow Yeshua or God, and place himself at the seat of basically the head of the governments in the future. They talk about the Antichrist. Yeah, that's a whole complex thing in itself too, but that's basically boiled down in a nutshell of what my understanding of Zionism is, and the history of it.
I have in my hands a book by Arthur Kessler. It's called The 13th Tribe. Have you heard of that?
Say that again?
Arthur Kessler, The 13th Tribe.
Oh, The 13th Tribe. No, I have not.
It's about the Khazarian Empire. It's the only book about the Khazar Empire that I can find in the library. My library system, and this is a 4-county system, so it's pretty amazing that they only have this one book. But he says, right at the end of the book, he talks about Israel and the implications on Israel from the point of view of knowing the history of the Khazarian Empire, which most people haven't heard of, all these experts. I thought once it was the kind of self-appointed experts on how evil Islam is and how good Israel is. And he never heard of the Khazarian Empire. We got at the end of the conversation. So anyway, Arthur Kessler says at the end of the book, this Appendix 4, some implications, Israel and the diaspora. He says, in the first place, I am aware of the danger that it may be maliciously interpreted as a denial of the state of Israel's right to exist. But that right is not based on the hypothetical origins of the Jewish people, nor on the mythological covenant of Abraham with God. It is based on international law, i.e., on the United Nations decision in 1947 to partition Palestine, once a Turkish province, on a British-mandated territory, into an Arab and a Jewish state. And it goes on. But now, that only legitimacy they had, which is the UN, that's really on thin ice. And only because of the United States being infiltrated by their secret society. I don't know if you've heard of their secret society. I can look that up too. What is that called? They have a secret society, and its name means basically, what's the word? Pharisees, basically, is what it means. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, you're in background, sorry.
Yeah, we have about 4 minutes left with the Blog Talk Radio. But we're going to continue.
Let me try and find that name real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to continue with our YouTube video, and because I'm finding this quite interesting, and I believe that our listeners and our viewers are going to feel the same way. So we're gonna hash this out, and we're going to continue with this subject, especially with the United Nations and Israel and the Zionism and that whole history that a lot of people, I'm sure they don't have any idea of that, plus the international laws that you're talking about. Some really good information.
I believe it's called the Parushim. 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 It's also called the Menorah Society. This is the group that's been brainwashing America. They've been infiltrating the intelligentsia here.
Hold on a second. I'm going to look that up.
Really want to get beneath
Menorah Society.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. We got to.
Menorah Society or the Parushim.
Hold on 1 second. Just wait 1 second. Don't say anything. Menorah Society. Okay. Jewish Virtual Library. That's what I just came up with. Menorah Association of Menorah Journal. The Jewish origins.
You won't find Parushim in that. What's that?
You won't find. Say that again.
I was just saying you won't find Parushim in the Jewish Encyclopedia even. I think the only results I'm finding are AmericansNew.org is the first result for Parushim, and then other websites. I don't even see any that are even Jewish. It's really they really keep it under wraps, or have kept it the whole century. And we're talking even before. We're talking back as far as almost like 1910, like almost the whole century.
And it's called the.
They've been operating.
And it's called the.
90 seconds.
Oh, shit. All right, so we got about 90 seconds with the Blog Talk Radio. And so tell me about this Menorah Society quickly.
So, and this is also on the same website of AmericansNew.org. I mean, like I say, great. It's a great website. So the Parushim, a secret episode in American Zionist history. That's the title. You can Google Parushim, Parushim. You'll get this. So, not something I've read a lot about yet.
Hey,
but
if I'm on this website, if Americans knew, where would we find this information you're talking about?
About the Parushim?
Yes.
I just Googled it. It's under. If you hover under current situation.
Okay.
And it shows that it's under that tab, but I don't select for it.
Yeah,
I just say Google it.
There's a whole bunch of international law, daily life reports, news sources, latest news, resistance, international attacks, peace process, Palestinian.
10 seconds.
All right. Well, hey, John, we're going to say goodbye to our Blog Talk Radio listeners. And you have any last things you want to say to them?
Well, pray for me that I don't get killed.
Yeah.
And please look it up for yourself, learn for yourself, and decide for yourself. Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So our blog talk show is just, the recording is just ended, but we have probably about 10 minutes left where it will continue to record this information. But boy, yeah, this is some really interest. And you were telling me about a guy that actually was putting this information out, and he had to fake his death a couple of times earlier.
Yes. Yeah. He's a Jew, even though he's an atheist. His name is David. I'm sorry. His name is David Cole. David Cole.
All right, so David
Cole has investigated Auschwitz, as we call it, and found that basically what were supposed to be the gas chambers been altered, and there was no residue of the supposed gas. So there are big issues with that story. And this was in the 80s. We've known this since the 80s. The lie has sort of dragged on.
Interesting.
What's that?
I'm finding something. It says TheGuardian.com might have done a thing on him. Hollywood conservative, unmasked, and notorious Holocaust view, basically. Is this guy a professor?
He is a investigative journalist, I guess. Independent, very independent-minded guy. Seems to me, I really like him a lot. He's very likable. Because he doesn't work for anyone that I know of. I don't know.
Do you have? Here's a strange history of David Cole. There's been a stranger life tragedy that the Holocaust revisionist David Cole, 8/21, found.
Right.
Is that the guy?
That's the guy. He's a revisionist, not a denier. Important, just like John Coleman is not a global warming denier, right? But he's actually, so we have to, word denier, we have to sort of, be careful about, right? Because it doesn't describe half of what I think it does. And he's a good example of that.
Right. Okay. So I found a website, the Accidental Observer. And there's an interesting article about the Holocaust revisionist.
Okay.
It says 3 death threats forced him out of revisionism. He faked his death and then disappeared for over a decade, only to reinvent himself on the Hollywood conservative scene as a high-powered GOP mover and shaker. While he was riding high, the toast of the local Republican establishment with his alcohol-soaked fundraising events where he rubbed shoulders with the likes of Clint Eastwood, John Voight, Ron Chaney, Andrew Breitbart, then the combination of a woman scorned and YouTube's resurrection of old chat show clips did him in. He was ousted in spectacular fashion last year when he turned into a parish by the conservative establishment. He was banned by the Republican Party for life and condemned in more than 200 magazines, newspapers, and websites for his youthful views. His GOP friends wanted nothing more to do with his so-called evil Holocaust denier. Interesting.
Right. So the people that led the charge, to literally have him called the Jewish Defense League, or JDL.org.
Okay.
And they're just literally the most out there. Look at their you could look at their website and just judge for yourself, decide for yourself. They're really, really far out people. And like I say, there's so much money behind this that you're bound to get a lot of people, especially cranks, to just go with the motion of opinion and not investigate. So
Sure.
that's what we're seeing in this country. Heavy infiltration by the secret society, and then just a lot of people not thinking and not investigating. It kind of works in tandem, just like we've seen with the Masons, right?
Yeah. It looks like he wrote a book called The Republican Party Animal. The Bad Boy of Holocaust History blows the lid off of Hollywood's secret right-wing underground.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Well,
this was put out last July. Interesting. Very interesting that you're talking about this.
Well, he went to Auschwitz in person, and he investigated these so-called gas chambers, and he asked all of the authorities, and he came up with all these contradictions that we're making, and the hard evidence goes right against everything they're saying. In fact, they contradict themselves. So
interesting.
It's clearly the conclusion is simply that this was carried over from what the Soviets tell us of the Nazis, and so we carried that over and we didn't, and we put it in the history books, and the teachers, the school teachers, are all their mouthpieces. But in reality, we've known for sure since the 80s that it's a lie.
Right.
That the numbers are exaggerated by a factor of 4 at least.
Right. Well,
4.
Anybody that's been following our work in the anti-Illuminati party or the new anti-New World Order party, basically, if they done their homework, they understand that the Zionists, really Illuminati Zionists, Luciferian occult, control the mainstream media. They're the ones that are writing our history books. So, of course they want to, change history and make it look like something, I'm not saying that the Holocaust didn't happen, but is the mainstream view exactly what happened? Well, anybody that believes a mainstream view on anything is pretty much brainwashed.
Well, Daniel, Hitler was working together with the Zionists, and there was no agenda to eliminate Jews. It was to defend them. So what we're told is incredibly wrong. Well, not that there weren't deaths in this tragic, but a lot of them were diseases. And they literally, I couldn't believe this until I with my own eyes, but there was a swimming pool. Like, this was not just a death camp. It wasn't a death camp at all. People died because of disease.
Well,
but they were trying to get them all to Palestine. Was the plan. And Hitler you can never find anything signed by Hitler that says eradicate all Jews. That was not the agenda. Which is why the numbers weren't even close to what we're told.
Some people, if they were listening to this right now, they would probably think that you're a Nazi sympathizer. What would you say to that?
I know that. But that's the extent to which you've lied to. I mean, this is the hardest issue of our time.
Right. What would you say to the people that would call you a Nazi sympathizer?
I would say that Zionists are the real Nazi sympathizers, and history bears me out. I would recommend going to YouTube and typing in Jim Condit Jr., and he has a 2+ hour long presentation about exactly why everything I say is true.
Now,
complete with titles, names, and these are people who know. This is no joke. This is not political in any way. This is completely scholarly to the hilt.
Now, as far as, you know, your history and background, where you just mentioned, you know, a YouTube video. Can you name a couple more sources for people to actually go to? I know that we're at that one website, ifamericanew.org, but do you know of any other sources that people can look up?
I mean, so surrounding this question, there are other questions, right? Surrounding Israel, there's the question of Zionism. There's the question of Zionism's collusion with the Nazis, right?
Yeah.
There's the question of biblical legitimacy, which we've hopefully at least did an outline of how easy it is to debunk that, right? So, I mean, whatever your poison, yeah, we've got it, because it's all false all the way down the line. Now, I do have a great playlist that I'll link on this video when we're done. And that will hopefully, and I put it in order of like shortest to longest, and it's got all of these things referenced. Well, so that hopefully gives someone who doesn't have a lot of time to taste.
Can you?
It starts with the shortest.
Can you go down that list? Can you go down that list quickly for our Blog Talk Radio listeners before this is completely hung up on?
I will get to that playlist as quickly as I can.
Yeah, that would be great.
The first item on it I remember is ISIS, how ISIS actually originally stood for Israel in the 90s, stood for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. The second video is about Ted Cruz trying to tell a bunch of East Christians that Israel is the best friend of Christians and being booed off the stage literally because they knew it wasn't true. What else? Let me just get to that playlist.
If
called Research Israel.
If this call happens to hang up here, call me back on my regular number.
Okay, I will. The next one is 60 Minutes. It's amazing. 60 minutes. Just go, you can go to YouTube, type in 60 Minutes, Israeli persecutes children, Christians and children. The next one is Alison Weir, in history of how the U.S. was used to create Israel. The next one is Noam Chomsky on Israel and the whole world situation. The next one is this great Blue Pilgrim, it's called. Within Israel is the name of the series, and it's Cite to Hate, and it's blackwashing and sex washing. I don't know if you understand what he means. Blackwashing as in pretending to not be racist, right? Sex washing, pretending to not be sexist. One of the things this guy points out is that in Israel, 61% of people polled believe that not rape if you know the guy, or So that's really where they're at with civility. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Anyway. And then there's a whole list on Herzl and Zionism. Theodor Herzl, of course, the founder of Zionism. Another title of this was The Anti-Semitic State of Zionism. Excellent stuff. Again, the stuff you were never told. I was never told. Next, we have Rabbi David Weiss, and that's on Judaism, Israel, and Zionism. And then Jim Condit Jr. and his video is called The Final Solution to Adolf Hitler, just about how the Nazis and the Zionists were all really closely working together, and they were all under the banks, right, the banking elite. And loyalties would shift back and forth from Hitler to Stalin. He talks about all that. And then I kind of added on the end the one with David Cole in Auschwitz, telling the true story. And it's really simple. We've been lied to. We've been had. So, love is all the way. Hate Israel just about all the way too. Yep.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
All right. So obviously we're getting a little rundown, some history here from a gentleman that I know from back home, John McGuire. And John is very good when it comes to... Oh, there we go. Okay, John, you're back with me.
How did we do?
I believe you did pretty good. I'm glad you hit a few of those references for some of our Blog Talk listeners there. And I'm sure, you know, we're gonna get that information, and we'll put it on that link to that actually episode that we just went through. And fairly good, you know, sources that you're saying there. You know, you're talking about 60 Minutes. That's a mainstream program. I'm very surprised that they were even able to put out some information that it slipped through the cracks, I guess you'd say.
Well, no, well, this guy really, you know, you can count on some of the people on the left to do a little bit of this for us, you know, and that's what it is. It's not their truthers, but it's the leftists, and they know it's a political alignment thing for them. I know it is, but still, you know, they're useful in that they're actually, unlike the so-called religious right, they're actually telling us about Israel and Christians. Why does the right give a crap about that? That's screwed up. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But we're not on the radio now, so I don't know what to do.
Well, we're still broadcasting live on YouTube right now.
We are. Don't I sound better when I know it, though?
Well, I think you've been doing a pretty good job as far as, you know, this topic. Let's get a little deeper into the topic of Israel and the Zionists and the Nazis. You know, there's some. I know that you've been doing some research on this topic here for at least the last couple years. I remember you were telling me about what I found pretty interesting was the occult connection and the UFO phenomena and the underground bunkers. You know, a lot of that stuff I found pretty interesting when you were telling me about that. Can you give our listeners and viewers some general idea of this occult connection to the New World Order, Illuminati, Zionism, Nazi connection?
Okay, well, are you talking about UFOs still, or what?
Just an overview of UFOs, occult, you know, Nazi, Zionism, and Illuminati.
Well, okay. The overview is I have no idea what to make of most of that stuff because I've seen stuff all over the map. I think at one point I had seen some video kind of saying that okay, here I'll give you my overview of what I think maybe is going on with UFOs, and then we can break it down to what I've heard, because I got to start with the abstract, which is or with the general thing. Basically, I think that you go up far enough with all these so-called governments, right? And it's the banks running the ones that are successful, right? Successfully oppressive, I should say, right? For the most part. I'm not that human nature isn't bad enough without it, but the banks tend to be involved there too. Above the bank, I would say there are probably some sort of beings that are probably not within our spectrum of vision or hearing, right? Sort of like what I talked about a lot. I don't think he's completely wrong about it. Everyone's got a different way of expressing it. It's probably something that goes beyond words, and it's probably something we can find in the Bible if we know what we're looking for. You're
talking about reptilian shape-shifting.
Yeah, I'm talking about you name it. I mean, there's a lot out there. There's just a lot. And we have different categories for it. The Bible has its own terminology. David Icke has his own terminology. What's her name? Peggy Kane has her own way of describing it. So people with intuitive gifts, which of course the scientism people, the establishment will always call you crazy the moment you open your mouth. But people have, I think, my opinion personally, people have intuitive gifts, and I find them very worth listening to, because even though I can't say empirically prove what they're saying, usually if I listen long enough, they come up with insights that are really helpful. And so that's somehow how I know that they're not crazy, right? But they just have a way of perceiving things that's different. Everyone has a different neurology, for heaven's sakes, right? We know that. I'm autistic, other people are other things, okay? So I like listening and sharing, because basically it's a great journey to go outside of the fascist paradigm and just, be real with people. I enjoy it. So basically, when it comes to UFOs, are there aliens? Sure. Do the Germans come up with UFOs too? Maybe. I mean, because I think another term for some of these aliens is probably ascended masters, which is something Hitler was definitely into, which he borrowed from Helen Blavatsky.
Right. I was just going to mention Helen Blavatsky.
Mm-hmm. So there's no reason to doubt, I think, that he had contact with such things, because if you listen to the way people talked who were the heaviest influence on Hitler, there's certainly something strange going on. Well, and not just now too, probably.
Now here's another interesting one that I wanted to touch on with this whole Nazi Zionist Israel connection, is the connection to the Catholic Church. I know that you know a lot of history of this topic with the Catholic Church, and I know that you've done the research with the Nazis. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because I know at one point the actual Pope at that time gave his blessing to the Nazis. What would you say about that?
I would say that I never heard that. So
really,
but I guess that, well, I would kind of make a distinction between the Vatican family, so to speak, and the Catholic people, right? They're two very, very different things, aren't they? Not that they don't share some things in common, but when you get to Italy, you get to a really weird political culture in general, right? So, and when you get into the Vatican, it becomes no less weird, right? Just that most Catholics aren't aware, right? So it's two different worlds. And I try to subtly hint for the benefit of Catholics, there's a lot going on. You have no idea. It's not in your catechism. You know what I mean? Stuff they do in the Vatican. So, or deals they make. So it doesn't surprise me terribly, but again, they're all kind of controlled by the banks, right? So these allegiances, they're all in some way on the surface compared with the ultimate allegiance, which is the almighty dollar, basically, right? The money printing industry, the Federal Reserve, the people who create this artificial value, right? They're the ones I think these guys have to answer to, if I'm not much mistaken. Right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, interesting. I just looked up, this is what I typed into Google. Pope gives Nazis blessing, and there's 3,140,000 results in 7.1 seconds. So yeah, there's definitely a connection to the Adolf Hitler and the Pope's blessing. The Guardian.com wrote something about it.
Oh, well, they're great. Yeah, listen, I didn't mean the fact that I never heard of it before. I'm not one of those guys that to me that's proof it didn't happen. I didn't mean it that way. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I would something about Gandhi, because people try to make it like Gandhi approved of Hitler, which he absolutely didn't. So I just want to like, I'm not going to go to bat for any pope, but because I don't know of any that I would really approve of. But Gandhi, well, I'd say I completely approve of him, but I've investigated that charge with Gandhi, and he clearly was doing what he could to deter Hitler. So.
Really, can you speak to that at all as far as your research?
Well, I would just say Google "letter from Gandhi to Hitler," and you can find it. But just don't read all the opinions. Read the actual letter. That's kind of the hoops you got to jump through, because there's this campaign to attack him for whatever reason. They're saying he was too gentle with Hitler. Well, you have to realize Gandhi was a vegetarian. He was a gentle guy. Yeah. So he used very gentle language in a letter to Hitler. Well, imagine if he had tried something else. What if he said, "You jerk, you better," they would have just burned the letter. Come on. Yeah, right? So
Right.
Anyways, that's another thing. The point is, he was definitely not encouraging Hitler to do any of the things that he did. But maybe he thought Hitler would understand him a little, because Hitler was kind of educated by Helen Blavatsky, who was definitely one of the most Eastern Europeans of her time. Most Eastern, Westerners, if you will. I mean, she was like the first high-profile Westerner who converted formally and publicly to Buddhism. So maybe Gandhi thought that Hitler might please reason and see this thing, because Hitler had a very spiritual outlook. People have tried to say he was not an occultist, but he definitely was. He was just on the dark side, right?
Yeah.
So
Here's
Gandhi trying to connect to that, I think.
I actually pulled up the actual letter that Gandhi wrote, and I'll read it. It's only 2 paragraphs. It says, "Dear friend, friends have been urging me to write to you for the sake of humanity, but I have resisted their request because of the feeling that any letter from me would be an impertinence. Something tells me that I must not calculate, and that I must make my appeal for whatever it may be worth. It is quite clear that you are today the one person in the world who can prevent a war which may reduce humanity to the savage state. Must you pay that price for an object, however worthy it may appear to you to be? Question mark. Will you listen to the appeal of one who has deliberately shunned the method of war, not without considerable success? Anyway, I anticipate your forgiveness if I have erred in writing to you. I remain your sincere friend, Gandhi."
And you can hear that in an Indian accent, can't you?
I'm sure. Yeah, that's
Right.
pretty interesting. Wow. I mean,
They're very deferential people, right? And he's saying, you're an important guy right now, like whether we like it or not, right?
yeah.
You could change the fate of all of this. So yeah, of course he's going to be deferential. I mean, goodness gracious,
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but that works with Hitler. That works with crazy people like Hitler, because I heard a story when another 60 Minutes, or wait, no, it wasn't. Forget it. But he got to another place where there were a lot of prayerful people, which was a Greek island of Athos, Mount Athos, and the monasteries there. And he was going to just kind of sack and pillage, I guess. And they said, wait, hold up. Like if we'll pray for you, we could be your special prayer protectors if you don't kill us, right? And of course, they're praying against him, I'm sure, right? Obviously. But, but they said it in a way, and he said, well, okay, wait, well, this could be another notch in my belt, right? So that was the way peaceful people could communicate with him. So, I mean, it worked sometimes. So he was going for it. Good for him.
Interesting. Hey, I want to get back to this website, ifamericasnew.org. I was looking at the part about history, because we were talking about history here, and it talks about ancient history, Israel deliberately forgets its history, early history of the religion, the origins of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Interesting stuff. So getting back to the website, if Americans knew, and your personal research into this whole Israeli conflict that's going on, what are your thoughts on the new election of the Prime Minister of Israel, or the President of Israel? Netanyahu, I think his name is.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, sorry.
That's cool. Well, so he ran a campaign that was clearly hateful of Arabs, right? I mean, he said it. He said, Arabs are, we gotta do something. These Arabs, they're coming to vote. We gotta stop this. We gotta, And so he rallied the so-called right faction of Zionists, or Israelis, I guess, probably Zionists too, right? And that was how he got reelected. But the polls have been showing he has been declining steadily in popularity within Israel for upwards of 5 years, I think. I mean, for a few years. I don't actually know how long he's been in office. I got to check that, but I couldn't find a good good table that would show his decline of popularity. But basically they see him for what he is, and But somehow he got reelected, man. But he ran a really sleazy campaign to do it. That's for sure. Fortunately, he has backed down on some of that stuff because I think he knows we all heard it and we're sick of him. Obviously, there's a difference between the right and the left here in the United States, where not a single Republican missed his talk, but a bunch of Democrats did, protested it, vacated it, I should say. But again, that's because we have, in this country, we have a gap between so-called Christians and people that care about Christians in the Middle East, right? So
right.
Called themselves Christians here in the United States, gave a rat's ass, about Christians in the Middle East. Our views would have to change radically on Zionism, on Israel, and on Palestine. Radical change. So you just can't go down this rabbit hole and keep the same views.
Right.
That there's no way, for me personally, someone can point out a way where we're really, cognitive dissonance is the only word for this.
So, other words, willful ignorance.
Invincible ignorance, willful ignorance, yeah, something like that. We really get the third degree and crazy on this. Like, we need to learn. We need to set aside our views, I think, and just get the facts and let that inform our views like a sane person would do. We're like adult children, for God's sake. That's how we operate mentally. We need to grow up a little.
Well, this is the biggest topic in the history of the world, is really Israel in the Middle East, Jewish people. I mean, our calendar is based around the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and the timeline of what's happening in the Middle East.
Sure.
A lot of Christians would say that what's happening in the Middle East is not the real Israel. That this is. What would your thoughts on that subject? The Israel that we know in the mainstream and the biblical Israel. What would your thoughts on that be?
I would just have to defer to Rabbi Weiss about that, because yeah, I think it could not be. It could not be right at all. What calls itself Israel now? No way. No way could that be from the true God, from a good God. No, impossible. Their injustice screams to the heavens. Unfortunately, just not to America yet.
You know, there's a prophecy about Israel in the end times. It says that Israel becomes a stumbling block to the whole world. Could this be that stumbling block that we're seeing today?
There's definitely a blockage.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of what true Israeli people, I don't want to speak against the so-called Jews or but speaking out against evil, there's nothing wrong with, shining the light in the darkness, or, this is a heavy subject even to get into.
It's like Catholics who won't talk bad about priests. This is the same kind of dynamic. These Christians who have made a theology where Israel, becomes all important, which I'm not objecting to that as much as just the fact that we've allowed this to blind us. Right, we're treating them somehow like a clergy. And we can't do that. That's just going to blind us, and that's going to make us share in their unrighteousness. So I would say, if you want to be on the side of true Israel, then you've got to start with the Torah and those who know it. Please, like that's my submission. That's my plea.
Interesting.
Don't make the mistake. Don't make the mistake of being mainstream about this. Take the narrow path.
Absolutely. There's so much here on this website that you can go over. I mean, there's so many topics. You have the Obama administration. You have the USS Liberty, which is a whole topic in itself. Spying, neocons, war on Iran, media analysis, U.S. interests, detailed history, U.S. policy, so many different little rabbit trails you can go down. But I tell you what, this has been an interesting conversation about Israel and the history of it, and the Nazis and the Catholic Church, and, especially what I think is really the most important thing, though, is that there's innocent children that are being killed in this conflict, whether it's for land or religion. It's sad that this has to be happening. I believe there's a better way. I believe that there's diplomacy that can be happening,
Well, probably we should stop spending let me try that again. We should probably stop spending the federal government through taxes. Of course, I'm going to get arrested for this. I don't care. And we should move away from the Federal Reserve currency, because that's where the evil seems to keep perpetuating. Like I keep hearing people say this, people who are savvy keep saying this, that it's the money, that this evil will not stop as long as we're using their money. So I don't know, maybe there's some truth behind it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, the Federal Reserve is definitely, we're not the only activist group out there that brings up the Federal Reserve. And it seems like any organization that tries to go up against the Federal Reserve, they shut them down, they infiltrate them, they'll talk bad about them. But,
right, 'cause we've got nothing to theory anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the people in our group that are watching these videos, we're preaching to the choir, okay? So it's now, I mean, sure, we can reach some new people, but this, we're basically we're trying to find out some positive here, some solutions. And we're not, here trying to overthrow the government, and that's not my desire. My desire is not to overthrow governments or cause anarchy, or my belief.
I don't disagree with anarchy, but I agree with you about not overthrowing by force, certainly.
Right. My belief is this has been what I stick to. Liberation through education. I believe that if we get educated on certain topics, even the people that are doing this evil, I believe that they are some people that are just miseducated. And that's what bringing the light and education, liberation, theology. That's what I believe in, and that's what I will stick by here.
That's right. I mean, Christianity is not just about, people talk salvation, 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 but it's beyond that, because Jesus is Savior, but then he sends the Holy Spirit, who is enlightener, liberator. I mean, it's supposed to go way beyond what most Christians go to, I think.
Well, there's a passage in the Bible where it says, "My people perish for a lack of knowledge." It also talks about the stiff-necked people, and God's going to judge the cowards in this world. So, I don't believe that, doing this, talking about this stuff, it definitely takes some courage, man. And I appreciate you coming on here today talking about this topic, because this is one of those topics that can really as you talk about that guy David Cole, you've seen what happened to him. I mean, there's other people that have perished because of this subject too. I hope that, and I pray that God gives us protection as we make our way through this, river, because it's like going over the Niagara Falls. You know what I mean? You really don't have much protection when you're going over something that furious and that big. And that's what this topic, I compare this topic to the Niagara Falls, man. We're going over the falls, and we're taking this head on. So
right, we need spirit, not system. I think I want to stick in your craw. It's a quote from Eamon Hennessy. He says, "There is room," and he's speaking from a Roman Catholic perspective, of course, "there is room in the church for Democrats, Republicans, socialists, Marxists, and anarchists." And then he says, "Contrary to public opinion, it is not the anarchists who throw bombs, but the governments."
The statists, basically.
The governments themselves, the military.
Right. Well, history teaches us basically that governments have killed more people than all religions combined. So,
It's called democide. Exactly. Alex Jones has talked about democide. You can Google the word. It just means death by government. And it is the highest cause of death, except I think someone said mosquitoes are number one, but it's number two.
Wow. Malaria. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, boy. I'm not looking forward to this summer. I'll tell you, I'm working up here in the North Dakota oil fields, and what I'm hearing is there's a lot of mosquitoes that are up here, and I'm just hoping that I could figure out a way to propel those little suckers.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But anyways, is there anything else on your mind before we we close up on this subject here?
I'm drawing a blank. What else? Oh, just watching A Clockwork Orange, finally. Because enough people told me not to watch it, so that was pretty cool.
Off topic.
Yeah.
All right. So hey, okay. So here's something. Here's a question for you. as far as the future of Israel, what do you believe, or what do you think? Do you see happening in the near future with Israel?
I don't know, because I'm not in these smoke-filled rooms where it's decide all of it. But I guess I don't know. I never thought I'd find myself siding with Obama on anything. But you know what? I mean, if he's going to follow the age-old principle of balance of powers and not let Israel be the only one with nuclear weapons, I mean, to me, that's wisdom. I don't know, but I don't really know. So, gosh, I just wish all the nuclear weapons would go away, but obviously that's not on the table.
Right, that's definitely not on the table. But
they just want to take our guns, so yeah, screw that.
yeah. So what you think is well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so you believe that they should create? Do you believe that they should create a Palestinian state?
I really don't believe in state. I don't believe in politics. But a two-state solution, a no-state solution, a one-state solution, I just say less government is better, no matter what. So whatever they do, I hope it's minimizing in politics. That's all I can say. That's all I really know. You know?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. So
people got along fine without Israel. Jews, Muslims, and all around the world, they get along just fine. You don't want to know why? Because in a lot of ways, and I don't mean to be like racial about this, but they are very economically stable peoples. And a lot of times they work very well in tandem to create prosperity. Like nobody talks about this. But yeah, most of the world, most of history, Jews and Arabs, you know, they're a great team, you know. And I think Rabbi Weiss tries to remind us of that because we're so brainwashed now to think that they've never gotten along, just the opposite of the truth. So, yeah, I think if they get the government out of the way and look at how economically they can work together like they always have, then maybe these assholes like Netanyahu will just disappear. In fact, I know they will.
Oh.
He's mafia, okay? I'm pretty sure.
Well, yeah, this is some interesting. Interesting. Yeah, you know, there is a thing about you know, in the wars, they had the wars there when the Christians went against the Muslims, you know, who got along with both sides, but it was the Jews. You know, that's why the Khazar warriors and the Turkish empires, they basically gave themselves over to the Jews because the Jews got along with both sides, the Christians and the Muslims, you know, back in those days.
True Jews tend to, because they're commanded not to for creating a homeland, so they would get along with whoever they were with. That's been most of history. Unfortunately, Western Europe, a lot of times, has been an asshole, both Jews and Arabs. So, you know, that creates a lot of screwed up stuff.
Yeah. Now, can you speak of the history of this? Because there's a tab here. It talks about the history of the Jewish state, the Arab-Israeli wars, the Jewish state. I'd like to learn a little more about the history of this, the Jewish state. Do you know much about the history
of the state itself, or of the ideology?
The Zionist ideology, the Zionist movement.
That goes back to Theodor Herzl, who was a French Jew, emphasis on French because he wasn't a Jew in any meaningful way. He actually wanted to be French for the longest time. He wanted all Jews to become European, and very socialist, okay? And then he realized it was impossible. For whatever reason, he decided it was impossible, and that therefore there should be a Jewish state, kind of a little bit away from Europe, really basically the same thing as the European system. And he
he wasn't dead set on it being Israel either, because again, he wasn't religious. It wasn't about next year in Jerusalem. That wasn't the motive. It was just about, socialism and nationalism and racism, basically. We don't like to call it that, but it's exactly what it was. Ethnocentric. It was racist. It was racist from its inception. So, but I mean, let's face it. Look at the Bible. Israel is a nation, right? The Bible is about God, but it's largely too about a nationalist ideology, right?
Yeah.
So, in some ways, he was consistent with that, but obviously not self-consciously any kind of theist or any kind of God-fearing person. But he was definitely in line with that nationalism, for sure. So that was where the ideology came from. As the system itself, I think, though, it took a lot from England, which had ruled that region previously, right? So they took a lot of English polity, or whatever you want to call it, policy into their system, and then, of course, gave it a bunch of Hebrew names, and that voila,
So you said the guy's name was, what was it? Theodor?
Theodor Herzl, Herzl.
Theodor Herzl. Okay, I just Googled that, homeland of the Jewish people. Herzl was later hailed as the founding father of the State of Israel in Jewish state, 1896. Herzl's vision. Interesting.
They couldn't have done it without Hitler. And they know it. They worked together with him. I think actually a chunk of the high-ranking generals, Hitler was like half Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And a lot of the other high-ranking generals were Jewish. I set the numbers somewhere right in front of me here. What the heck are they? Anyway, it was a whole Jewish thing. Hitler was even worked with the communists before that. In what was that German city? Anyway, before he became a Nazi, he was a communist. Of course, he's always been under the bankers. I think the family that Hitler was probably the Rothschilds, basically.
Well, actually, one of the bankers is a very famous family, and Prescott Bush is actually a banker and the grandfather of the Bush presidents, Junior and Senior, and
Yep.
he was one of the bankers that funded Adolf Hitler's rise to power.
IBM, they couldn't have done it without IBM.
Right.
With that new system for keeping all the documents. So yeah, America, we're just great, aren't we? And then we were, of course, at the same time, we were doing the same thing not the exact same thing, but close to the same thing. When you realize what they actually didn't do to Jews and what we actually did to Japanese, you realize they're different, but not by quite as much as we were told. It's pretty wild. But I mean, thank heaven. I mean, it in a way, it's a relief, right? When you realize that, oh my goodness, 3 million Jews that I thought were dead aren't dead. It's kind of nice, right? I mean, I say, praise the Lord. Right? Really? Right?
Well, you would think that would be a good thing, but mainstream lame-brained society would tell you that you're still a Nazi sympathizer because those Jews didn't die, or at least they'll say, well, you're in denial, or you're willfully ignorant. With there's Mark Twain, he said, the height of ignorance is condemnation without investigation. So these people are going to condemn your investigations but
Yeah, but you know, they've scraped at the walls from the so-called gas chambers, and there's no residue to indicate the amount of gassing that we're told happened. So it's all Soviets. The Soviets, their own people, and then actually a lot of Jews never back in touch with their loved ones because they assumed they were dead. That everyone that went to Auschwitz died. I mean, that's what they were told, so they didn't bother. Don't bother. Don't spend your money on that. They're dead. Believe us, we know. And then thanks to the work of David Cole, actually some brothers who were long thought the other one was dead, they reunited. So, because you do a little research nowadays, and boom, you can find anyone. So thank God. That's what I'm talking about. And there were, so of the Nazis, there were 9 generals that were part Jewish. 79 high-level officials were Jewish. 1,100 officers, and then of the rank-and-file soldiers, about 150,000 were part Jewish.
now where are you finding this information?
This is according to Jim Condit Jr. It's documented, I think, in the book Hitler's Jewish Soldiers by Brian Mark.
Oh wow, are you actually reading that from that book right now?
I am not.
Oh, this is something you've read before and took notes on?
I took notes on Jim Condit's overview of these books.
Oh, was that on YouTube?
Right. But you know, the numbers are specific.
Right. Now, very.
I will link that on this video.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll definitely give you access to do that. Or at least what you can do is create an email and then send that to me with all the links, and I will definitely link all that information onto the video that we're doing right now. I'm going to post that on our blog, as well as I will post it on YouTube. Because I really don't want this information to disappear, because you know they're going to try to make it disappear.
Halfway.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just skimming through my notes here. The first ship that brought Jews to Palestine from Germany had the swastika on it, and then it had Tel Aviv written on the side of it. Previously, it said Hohenstein, but they painted over it Tel Aviv. And this is in the book, The Secret Context, Nazi-Zionist Relations by Klaus Holkeheim. I don't know. So that's just like another sample of what Jim Condit talks about, or again, you can read about in these books.
You know what comes to mind when you're talking about the Zionist-Nazi connection? The connection between the Muslim states and the Nazis. That's one that comes to mind as well when we're talking about this Zionism, Nazis, Muslim, and that whole.
Because there had been Jews living in Muslim states as well.
Right.
So it was important for them to crack down too, to get them all to go to Israel.
Wow. Now, what do you suppose the whole agenda behind getting all the Jews to Israel? I mean, I can just imagine. I could believe that, you know, the Satan himself would love to get all the Jews into Israel, and then try to create some kind of last-ditch Holocaust to destroy all the Jews to prevent God's plan from taking place for Jesus to come back. And you know, we know that this prophecies talk about another Holocaust, the greatest one to come, and I believe that's possibly what this whole agenda is, by creating a Nazi state, or a Jewish state, I should say.
Or it could be the opposite. It could be just to wipe out everybody else. I'm not sure. Don't have the answers, because it seems like a lot of these high-thinking families, they're Jewish, and they wouldn't let that happen. But who knows? I mean, they're crazy too. So.
Huh. Interesting.
Somebody even told me, like, you know, like a lot of the monarchies, you know, they inbreed, and so they basically de-evolve, right?
Right.
lot of these banking families, well, they're the monarch now, right? And so they're doing some of that too, and so their genetics starts to break down.
Right.
So they're just off their rockers, you know.
Yeah, they probably have a little bit of that syphilis going on in their brains, you know.
Yeah, something rattling around.
Boy, we better stop talking bad about the global elites, because they're going to get really mad and pissed off at us if they hear us talking about them like that. But I'm sure, you know, hey, they call us animals. They call us the goyim. So, hey, you know, it's all right if we poke a little bit of fun at them, right?
Yeah, I'm rubber, you're glue. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. But, man, I'll tell you, the more we talk about this stuff, the more interesting it is.
But I gotta say something else. What kept nagging at the back of my mind as he's saying all this stuff, Jim Condit. I'm thinking, yeah, but couldn't it be that we're all just a little bit investigated enough? Because frankly, you know, like they say, we're all descended from Alexander the Great or anyone far enough back in history. Like clearly, we've all probably got some Jewish blood. I mean, let's not joke around. So there is that I like to have fun with, because it's an obvious fact of life, right?
Well, also that, and if once, you know, you're talking about, obviously, we're all from Adam and Eve, supposedly. And so somehow, yeah, Adam and Eve, they're of the Jewish bloodline as well. So
Kind of inescapable.
yeah. Well, here's, you know, this is the other thing too that makes it something when you're talking about bloodlines that
I'm sorry, it's inescapable unless you inbreed and then you become like a freaking gorilla. But anyway.
well, yeah. Well, here's something. This is the thing that I really appreciate about what Jesus Christ actually has done. You know, we talk about the Nephilim in the Bible, where it talks about the great giants of the earth and how they infiltrated the earth, and God flooded the earth basically to get rid of the polluted genes and the bloodline of the Nephilim. And it also talks about how after the flood there were giants in the land, because we know about David and Goliath, and he was one of those giants.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in the Old Testament would say how the giants were doomed and they'd probably go to hell, right? Well, what was really cool about Jesus when he came, even though there still may be tainted bloodlines of the giants, the thing that I appreciate about Jesus that makes me, or Yeshua or Yahweh, that makes me appreciate it is he says, whosoever shall believe will be saved.
Mm-hmm.
So that means whether you're of a Jewish history, bloodline, if you're pure, if you're not pure, if you're of the Nephilim, if, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what color, what race, what religion. Well, I don't want to say what religion, but
well, in a way, you're right though, and because it introduced new dynamic, which is that, you know, not by might, not by power, but by the Spirit. You know, not flesh and blood, but the Spirit,
right.
which trumps all of that, or can trump all of that, and that's what Jesus invites us to share in that reality, where, you know, we don't have to always be looking back all the time, you know, at bloodlines. We can, you know, we can say, no, actually, now is the day of salvation. You know, now is my contact with the divine. You know, I don't need to, you know, I love imagery and stuff, but you know what? I'm starting to realize, you know, that's an important thing.
Yeah.
And everything.
Right. It's the whosoever. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what your history is. If you see the truth and you know that God sent his only beloved son to come here and die on the cross and pay the price for what we've done to pollute this world, to create the sin that we have, if you turn and you repent, man, what a joyful thought that is.
Yep, and Rabbi David Weiss is he praises God for anybody who gives glory to God. I mean, he's not one of these exclusive guys. I mean, yeah, he follows the Torah, but at the same time, he's not like this exclusivist. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful Jewish spirit. And what else was I going to say? Crap on it. But yeah.
You got a few more notes there, don't you?
No, I just had it in my head.
Oh.
Not a David. But what were you just saying?
I was just talking about the whosoever.
Oh yeah. I mean, Jesus. That's what it was. Jesus went to the Samaritan woman, and people love to quote where he says salvation is from the Jews. But at the same time, people don't like to quote how he after that says, neither here nor in Jerusalem, but true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, because that's what he really wants. That's what Jesus told the Samaritan woman. Hello, knock, knock. So, and that's what, and well, Christians who claim to be gospel Christians, granted that's in the Gospel of John, which is a bit of a horse of a different color from like the other Gospels, but that's what he says anyway, according to the writer of John. That salvation is from the Jews, but then in the same breath, this is this dynamic of the Jewish establishment being in charge of God's graces, and it's pretty much all but passed away by that time. And certainly by our day, it's totally passed away, according to that statement of Jesus, right? They says that neither here nor in Jerusalem. It doesn't matter. Samaria, Jerusalem, no. God is not going to be concerned with that. God doesn't want that. He wants the spirit and truth worship. What does that mean? That means within our hearts. That's why it says go into your room, close the door, right? That's the whole idea.
Right. Not out in public, not trying to make a spectacle of how holy you are and how much you've done for the Lord.
Not being part of the money changers racket. Yeah, all that.
Wow.
So it's a big deal, but people still don't realize what Jesus said, and I wish people who call themselves Christians would try to be that, just for fun, just to shake things up.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, man, this has been a great interview. I'll tell you what, I've really thoroughly enjoyed the short history lesson of Israel, and I know there's a lot of things that we missed that we can definitely refine and go over, but this has been a pretty good topic about Israel, and I hope that we didn't offend too many people, but
Oh, it's funny. Jim Condit says, I don't know who I'm going to offend more, the Jews or the Nazis, or the Zionists or the Nazis, because then they're working together. Anyway.
Right, but it comes back to truth and spirit, man. We're here, we're seeking the truth, and our spirit is a good spirit, man. We're not trying to hurt anybody, and we're just trying to expose the darkness, because there's a lot of darkness here.
I think that God is truth is one of God's facets. God is truth, and anything that's true, that's God. And anyone who goes against that is going against God. Amen. Amen,
man. So people that are listening to this that want to be willfully ignorant, I feel sorry for them if they don't want to do their research and they don't want to listen to some guys that actually have looked into this. I've looked into this topic for years, and I'm still learning things. This is a really cool little website that you showed. If Americans knew what every American needs to know about Israel and Palestine, that's really some hard-hitting information. I am personally going to look into this a little bit. No, I should say a lot more closely.
Well, I'm looking into what you said about the Pope blessing the Nazis, because I've noticed that a lot of these Catholics who speak out about the truth of Israel and the Nazis are actually in these splinter groups like Pius X societies. But I think that's kind of interesting too. So I want to dig deeper in that for myself as well.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. This is they say fact is stranger than fiction. Well, that's true because, man, looking into the history of this is some very strange stuff going on. And you know, if I was writing a book, I don't think I could write a book more interesting than what's really going on in the world right now. And what's going on, basically everything that's going on is surrounding Israel. You know, from the blood moons to the, you know, to the basically the conflict in the Middle East. It's just amazing. It all ties back to Israel.
By the way, if anyone's curious about UFOs and aliens, because you brought that up, I would definitely type it Paul Hellyer. He's the highest-ranking military man in the G8 nations. He's a Canadian veteran who's spoken out about it. Says there are 4 species of aliens, very specifically. So he's an interesting source on that. Obviously, the Air Force has been covering it up in our country, but in Mexico they've been covering it and they've been exposing it lately, and also now in Canada.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's fertile ground too, no question.
Yeah. You wonder, you know, who or what is pulling the strings on all of this Zionism and, you know, conflicts around the world. You know, is it God? Is it the devil? Is it some kind of, you know, strange beings from another world? Who knows? But it's definitely interesting to talk about. That's for sure. I'd like to maybe we could talk a little more about the ancient history of UFOs and aliens, gods, and, you know, stuff like that pretty soon.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's real. A lot of that folklore that we think is myth. Wow, man, some of it you never know. You never know what's real. Some stuff people make up, but man, you just gotta keep an open mind.
Absolutely. So, anyways, John, I want to end this program with saying thank you for joining us, and hope you come back soon. And I'd like to, you know what's on your agenda for the near future. Do you have any plans as far as, you know, any specific subjects that you're going to look into and start researching, or, you know, what's the next thing that you find interesting?
Well, last week was my speak, and that's why I finally listened to Jim Conda Jr.'s 2-hour and 22-minute long little talk where he's sitting at his desk. Like, I finally had the attention for that. So that's why I was all revved up for this. But I'm going back to classes this week. I really want to. I've gotten a lot out of J. Krishnamurti's talks, and I want to share a little bit of that with some of my, hopefully even professors, but classmates, maybe whoever wants to come. So that's sort of a plan that I'm having. I want to do more in academia. I hope to make that my livelihood eventually. I would like to do more research with people, and so I'm thinking and trying to find an in to make that kind of my future, as it were.
Interesting. I like that. I approve, and I think you're onto something here, buddy. Really do. Because from my perspective, man, I tell you what, I really respect the research that you've done, and I say that from a place of doing my own research, and basically, you know, everything that you were talking about, dude, I was looking up, and we're finding the links right here and showing everybody what you're talking about is right on. So appreciate that, man. That's pretty awesome.
It's a journey.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, God bless, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon on another subject here. And So, and God bless, and we will talk to you later, Johnny boy.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, so that was an interesting conversation, friends. I'd have to say, this has been great, and I'll tell you, I learned something about the state of Israel and Zionism and the history of where it came from, and I hope you enjoyed the program here as much as I did, and hopefully we'll be putting out some more intelligent, intellectual conversations and solutions for the future of the world. And thank you again for being a part of the program. God bless and ciao.